Thank you, Mr. Chair. It was a quiet holiday. I think it was either Martin Luther King Day or Columbus Day. I couldn't recall, but the phone rang while I was working at the district office, and I thought I would answer it, which is always kind of fun. Said this is the senator's office, and the gentleman on the other side of the line said that he was outraged. He had just come back from Arizona or somewhere, and the price of gas was so much lower, and just proceeded to just, talk my ear off. And I tried to tell him, well, we're trying to build a little module on our website on how to calculate the price of gas in California. And maybe that would be helpful to understand or appreciate why the cost of a gallon of gas is more in California. So he thanked me. And about 2 hours later, the phone rang again. And I thought, well, I should try and pick it up again, see what happens this time. And it was him again. And he said, I've been calling around to all the government offices, and I just realized today's a holiday, and you're working. You should tell the senator you deserve a raise. And he hung up. So with that, Mr. Chair, with gas now at about $4 a gallon, it would be wise to provide the details of the cost. When you purchase something at a store, the receipt gives you the total purchase price plus the sales tax, but you don't get that kind of breakdown for gasoline. And so we believe that SB 1074 will be helpful by utilizing current technology by providing a link to the State Energy Resources Conservation and Development Commission website to provide the details. It also provides for a QR code, a quick response code, which is a smartphone readable optical label that will quickly provide the components that add up to the total cost per gallon. A similar edit-ready dynamic code is also required. These simple tools are here, available, and our curious constituents that wish to know the details deserve the disclosure should they wish to avail themselves of it with their phones, iPads, or laptops. Colleagues, gasoline is inelastic. It's insensitive to changes in price. Commuters will buy it regardless to get to their places of employment. Consequently, for lower earning residents, gas is a higher component of their spendable income. The taxes on a gallon of gas is complex. There's federal fuel tax, state sales tax, refinery reformatting costs, state underground storage fee costs, cap and trade compliance costs, low carbon fuel standard compliance costs, renewable fuel standard compliance costs. Consumers deserve more details, and a breakdown should be provided. Currently, when they go to the pump, they blame producers or retailers, while retailers of gasoline are making their profit margins on the snack shops on the premises, not by selling really the gas, as the profit margin is so low. Current law requires the displaying of a visible sign displaying the federal and state taxes. With talk of Washington, D.C. considering raising the federal gas tax, our residents deserve full disclosure and transparency. This will help them in their financial decisions. Should they telecommute? Should they purchase an electric vehicle? Should they carpool? Should they use public transit? Should they move closer to their jobs? There's a lot of help here in making a decision. Showing the 7+ add-on components will help young families make better decisions about their limited financial resources. It's good government, and it's fair to the retailers as well. Concerns about using electronic devices at a gas station should be heeded, but ARCO has a couple of commercials with that revolve around a hula girl. The commercial titled "Hannah Goes to a Soccer Game" starts with a cell phone starting the transaction at the pump. So ARCO seems to be comfortable with a cell phone next to its computerized and computer-operated pump. So we should hopefully also be resting assured or easier. Colleagues, SB 1074 blends technology with a very regular taxpayer transaction for most vehicle owners. Let's exceed expectations and give them all the information possible. Accordingly, I request an aye vote, and I have a witness, Mr. Ronstein.
Very good. Thank you, Senator Moorlach. Mr. Ronstein, please.
Let me introduce myself. Ron Stein. I'm working with the American Society of Civil Engineers. They're prepping up their infrastructure report card for the entire state of California. I'm the committee chairman for the energy infrastructure for California, and the energy infrastructure includes electricity, natural gas, and oil for the entire state. My comments on this bill, as you know, fuel prices in California are among the highest in the country as a result of some of the highest taxes in the country, plus the costs associated with compliance with various state environmental laws, all of which trickle down to the consumer, resulting in the Californians paying as much as $1 more per gallon than most folks in the country. As the senator mentioned, most everything we buy, clothes, computers, vehicles, is based on price plus tax, except one item, transportation fuel, as the posted price includes everything. In a recent report by the California Energy Commission, they showed various costs associated with each gallon of gasoline and diesel attributable to the low carbon fuel standard, the fuels under the CAP, which is a boutique fuel in California required by the feds and CARB, renewable fuel standard, and cap and trade. All of those environmental compliance costs trickle down to the consumer and are hidden within the posted price at the pump. Despite California's fantastic progress toward growing the EV population, the California Energy Commission shows that California fuel consumption is at its highest level in over a decade. Fuel consumption for California's 35 million registered vehicles in 2016, of which 90% were not EVs, was 42 million gallons a day of gasoline and 10 million gallons a day of diesel. Sounds like a lot of fuel, but it's basically just a little bit more than a gallon per vehicle, resulting in refueling requirements every week or two. The California economy is heavily driven by affordable transportation. As you know, the cost of fuel directly impacts the cost of transportation, but it's also very inflationary on food and housing as well. And I vote on this bill would expand transparency at the pump by creating the quick read code that directly links the consumer with updated costs of all the taxes and all the environmental compliance costs. It would demonstrate that our elected representatives favor transparency of all those costs that are included on the posted price for the fuel to show the public why Californians are paying as much as $1 more per gallon than the rest of the nation. On the contrary, a nay vote would demonstrate that our elected officials do not want the public to know why our fuel costs are among the most expensive in the country. Obviously, I'm encouraging passage of this bill to provide the public with transparency of the costs that are ultimately displayed at the pump's posted price.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Stein. Others in support?
Mr. Chairman, members, yes, good afternoon. David Wolf with the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, also in support of SB 1074 today. This does boil down, members, just to transparency. You know, obviously we know what federal and state excise taxes are. Those are on the pump now. But as I catch my breath here, when it comes, though, to things like winter and summer fuel blends, when it comes to things like cap and trade, when it comes to things like the low carbon fuel standard, we don't know what those costs are. And to the extent that this very simple QVR process goes on the gas pump, we think it makes a lot of sense. Ask for an aye vote.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Others in support, please come forward.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Margot Parks on behalf of the Western States Petroleum Association. We're here in support of the bill today. As Mr. Wolf indicated, we think that this is a good consumer transparency measure, and there's a lot of public information and data out there, and to have it all put together in one place would be helpful for the consumer. And for that reason, we encourage your aye vote. Thank
Very
you.
good. Thank you. In support, good afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon. Russell Nowak on behalf of the California Independent Oil Marketers Association in support of the bill.
Thank you very much. Others in support? Seeing no one. Those in opposition, please come forward. Seeing no one in opposition, bringing it back to the committee. Senator Dodd.
Yes, Senator Morlock, you indicated that young families would be able to make, if this were passed into law, would be able to make decisions for their families on what to do in terms of telecommuting or any number of different things. I'm confused by that statement. I'm wondering if you could clarify that.
Certainly, Senator Dodd. As fuel prices get to be more expensive, as a lot of our younger, at least my younger constituents, are finding that they have to drive till they qualify. A lot of them live in the Inland Empire and then work in Orange County. Same is true up here. A lot of people drive long distances to go to Santa Clara, so they have to make some decisions. If they're looking at increasing costs somewhere, maybe they have to look at different options. So I think providing them as much information as possible will help them in that decision process. If they buy an electronic vehicle, they got to figure out what's the electricity going to be. How do they, balance the both, and then make some decisions.
Well, not to be argumentative, but I mean, the bottom line is it's $3.50 a gallon. That's the bottom line to the consumer. That's what their decision is made, whether or not there's transparency or not, in the overall scheme of things. I don't think somebody's going to decide whether to drive somewhere as a result of what's inside the prices as opposed to what the bottom line price is. And by the way, it does already say at the pumps, 18.2 cents for state tax and 18.2 cents federal tax.
Thank you, Senator Dodd. Other questions or comments from anyone? Seeing no one?
I do,
Yes,
actually.
Senator Newman.
Senator Morlock, I've had plenty of vacations recently, coincidentally, to talk about the price of fuel in California. And regarding this notion of transparency, I want to follow up on Senator Dodd's question. The price is the price. Nobody gets to choose what within that price they get to pay. And so if the question is, can we better educate consumers about the price of a gallon of fuel so they can make smarter decisions? I would argue that A, it's already fairly transparent, but B, there are other things we might do that would have a more positive effect on consumers. For instance, when you drive along and you see the price of a gallon of gas, more often than not, it's the cash price and not the actual price you'd pay with a credit card. Or in my district, I see a lot of times, I see the car wash price as the advertised price. It seems to me that might, the transparency there, let's price it against the most prevalent pricing basis. To your point that people might make decisions as to whether or not to drive, depending on the excise tax within it. I'm a little confused. I think you've already tried to answer the question. But what I would agree, people should be better apprised as to what they're paying. And within the cost, we can list the excise taxes, those things which we can control, those things affected by government. But what do we do about these things, the things that we can't control? For instance, there was a story recently, many have heard it here, about something economists are describing as the mystery surcharge. And so you cannot account for the delta between the cost of gas, say, in Arizona versus California. If you account for all kind of known factors, including excise taxes and other fees, there's still a 30-cent or so cost differential in California's cost per gallon of gas. None of what you're proposing here will answer that question. But we do seem to suffer from the effects of a closed market in California, irrespective of the cost. And it does seem that manufacturers and retailers are extracting a premium that is not accounted for, that would not be answered by the measures you're proposing. So if you wouldn't mind speaking to that, I'd be grateful.
Can I comment?
If you want to start, that's fine.
Is this on?
Just push the button. There you go.
Part of the problem with California is we're an energy island. As the infrastructure report card is going to show, we have the mountains on one side and the ocean on the other side. And we have no access to the rest of the country. And so the fuel is here, it's manufactured here, it's consumed here in the most environmentally controlled location in the country. And the environmental regulations are obviously affecting a tremendous impact on the economy. And it's, yeah, like I say, you're right, it's here. But I think, we have clean air, without a doubt, and we have a great movement toward EVs. But I think the public should know why we have clean air, because basically they're paying for it.
And I would argue the public already knows that. There's a basis for the public knowing every single detail with regard to that. But your bill does not do much to solve that larger problem, which I would agree is significant, which is, as you've described it, the energy island issue. And so I'd argue that's the problem we should be solving here, not providing any real different basis. And I will say, having worked in the internet industry for many, many years, the notion that a QR code is going to make a material difference to how consumers interact with the price of gas at tank, to me, seems rather naive.
Well, it will certainly help tourists that come here to say, hey, how come I'm paying $4 here when it was $3 at home? Then they have the ability to find out right at the pump.
To what effect, Senator Morlock? What would that do
Well, it would
for the
certainly-
state? I understand that might edify tourists, but what would that do to the more important conversation we should be having about energy costs?
Well, maybe I should ask it a little differently. What is the reason for not providing the information?
I would argue that we do provide that information. Every single thing we do in government is accessible in California. Now, we can argue about how easy we should make it, how public we should make it, how instant we should make it. There is no conspiracy to hide the costs of gasoline or taxes in California.
Other than perhaps that the consumer believes that it's now the producers and the retailers, and so this gives them at least some information that it isn't just some conspiracy by producers.
And yet, as I mentioned, that doesn't account for the full cost. On any given week, the cost of gasoline can go up or down by well more than the recent increase in gas tax, as you well know. That is not accounted for. So, and from what I can tell, your solution wouldn't really speak to that.
Thank you, Senator Newman. And I would agree that the QR code isn't going to solve the problem. Transparency and information would be helpful. It certainly always is something I think we strive for. It's important, but I don't see that this measure is going to get us there in a cost-effective, efficient, or effective way. I really don't. And I don't see at the end of the day, with that cost and with the effectiveness, that it's going to make a bit of difference, because this information is already available. You just have to look for it, and it can be fine. Would you like to close, Senator Moore?
I think
Well,
Senator.
the information that's available,
I
that's
didn't see you. I'm sorry.
Back to Josh's question. So maybe I was asleep on this, but if the taxes were posted as taxes, and you're a tourist or a constituent coming here, and you can read, write, and subtract, and you subtract the taxes from the gas price, you would know if the gas and oil guys are jacking the price up or not compared to Arizona. As in, if you don't have the tax information, you can't really be sure. So maybe I got that wrong. Did I get that wrong?
Sounds right.
Okay.
can I comment about the information that's
So
available?
about half of the labeling we do up here, and you know, I agree that I'm going to pay for the gas, whether the gas tax is posted or not, because I have to drive. And the people who are poor in my district are more likely to have to than anybody. So, you know, but I really do think that half the stuff we do up here is posting or making people label what's harmful to them, or what is the tax, or what is the ingredients. So anyway, I don't see the harm in posting what the taxes are if everybody knows what the taxes are anyway.
Can I comment on Josh Newman's request? The information, I'm sorry, Senator Newman. The information that's available, it's hard to find because the California Energy Commission basically shows the amount of cost associated with the refinery fuel standards and low carbon fuel standard and cap and trade, and it's all on their site, but the public almost never sees that. The bill is not just to talk about the taxes, but the environmental cost. I mean, that's the reason we have clean air. And I think the public should be aware that, they got clean air because, yeah, they're contributing to it.
Okay, thank you. Senator Wilk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Plan to support your bill today, and because I believe in greater transparency. I think the more transparent we are, the more accountable we can be held. One of the challenges I see to this, and it doesn't go far enough, frankly, I remember during the Wilson administration, we had 35 refineries in the state, and now because of environmental regulation, we're down to 12. So on top of all these other costs that we have, additional costs impacting supply is the lack of refinery capacity. If there's a way to quantify that and throw that in there, I'd be even more excited, but I will support your proposal today. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Wilk. Seeing no further questions or comment from the committee, would you like to close, Senator Morlock?
No, thank you for the fun debate. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Very good. Thank you very much. Is there a motion? So moved. Motion by Senator Wilk. Please call the roll.
Motion is due pass to Senate Appropriations Committee. Hill?
No.
Hill, no. Fuller? Aye. Fuller, aye. Dodd?
No.
Dodd, no. Galgiani? Glazer? Hernandez? No. Hernandez, no. Newman? Pan? No. Pan, no. Wilk? Aye. Wilk, aye.
We have 2 to 4, and we'll hold the roll open for absent members. Senator Morlock, thank
Thank
you
you,
very
Mr.
much.
Chair.
Thank you for your testimony today.